Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Dami Akingbade, a junior at Boston University's Questrom School of Business, pursuing a degree in business administration. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. My guest today is Dami Akingbade, a junior at Boston University's Questrom School of Business. She's pursuing a degree in business administration with a concentration in business analytics and marketing. Welcome, Dami.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
Dami, you and I met a couple years ago when you actually participated at a presentation with Natalie McKnight, who's the Dean of the College of General Studies at Boston University, and Professor John Regan, both of which, by the way, are prior Education Scholars Conversations guests as well.
Nice.
You participated in giving a presentation on the work that you did and the department did, or the College of General Studies did, and I was an attendee of that conference, and I saw your work, and I was just amazed by it.
Thank you.
And I always thought I need to go in and talk to Dami at some point.
Thank you so much.
And a few months ago, I was talking to John at yet another conference, and I said, "Oh, what happened to Dami?" And he said, "Oh, she's doing great, and she just finished at the College of General Studies, and now she's on to pursuing her degree at BU." And so I thought, I must really get a hold of you before you graduate.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, Dami, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you from? Where did you grow up? What brought you here?
Okay, so my name is Dami, like you said. Thank you for the introduction. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and I came to America around when I was 16 to do like a few years of high school. And then I started at BU, College of General Studies. So yeah, just been there, grew up in Nigeria, family is still there. It's a huge part of my identity.
So what was it like coming to the U.S.? Sounds like, were you by yourself? You said your family is still in Nigeria?
Oh, I have family here, so it was easy
As
to
well. Okay.
adjust.
Yeah.
My aunt lives here. I have cousins here. Some of my siblings were already here as well. Like they went to college here as well. So, and I'm the youngest out of four. So
So you're following the
yeah,
footstep
I
of
already knew the
all
I
those
already knew
that,
the
yeah,
process, kind of.
they kind of created the path for you.
Exactly. So it was kind of easy.
And was there any sort of cultural shock, or what is the difference that you noticed,
Yeah,
coming to the US?
I would say there was a cultural shock. I think one of the things that was like shocking was maybe people say things differently. Like I don't call a trunk a trunk. I call it a boot. Just like things like little things like that. And something I noticed was Americans are very, very nice. That's not to say that Nigerians aren't nice, but I feel like we're kind of just, on our own and mind our business as we go about our days. But Americans are a lot more friendly and will like, say hi to you as you walk past, even if they don't know you, which was something I noticed. And I was like, wow, like, are these people being fake or are they really just this nice? That was a shock
That's
too.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think that we'll later learn a little bit more about, you not only, being here, but you're traveling around in different
Mhm.
parts of the world as well, and it seems to be a theme that going from one place to another.
Yeah.
And I will share to you as well that I also I'm not a native here.
Oh, no.
I grew up in when I was a kid in Hong Kong, and I moved to the UK, and then I moved
Wow.
here. So seeing some of these the cultural differences sometimes is quite
Yeah,
um,
for
really creates
sure.
a really sort of interesting sort of perspectives,
It's true,
right?
yeah. It made me
Yeah.
look at things, like, very differently, seeing how
Mhm.
things are so different from, like, how things were back home, how people think about things, how people value things was interesting to see as well, so
And that's where sometimes I think this idea of different perspectives and diversity
Mhm.
can bring about things that you just won't know. You
Yeah,
won't know you don't know what you don't know, because actually a lot of these things, I should have said it differently, it's tacit. These are things that you know, but you don't know
yeah.
until
Until someone
someone shows
unlocks
you how
it.
they do it differently, right?
Yeah.
They unlock and they go, oh, I know this, but I know it in a different way,
Mhm.
right? And it's almost like, in order to learn about yourself,
Yeah.
you have to look through it through a
Different
lens that is
perspective,
different
yeah.
than you.
It really
Yeah.
helps you learn more about yourself, how you view things, and like, it helps you be self-aware, but also socially aware. You see how other people view things. You understand how to approach situations differently because people aren't like you. And yeah, like you said, it unlocks like a different part of you. And so you're able to learn so much more about yourself and like how the world
Mhm.
works. And you're able to work better with people as well in the end. So,
Yeah. I wanted to, if you don't mind, I wanted to maybe focus a little bit now on some of your journey at Boston
mhm.
University. I mean, you just joined, or joined the School of Business,
Yeah.
but for 2 years you were at College of General
Hmm.
Studies. For folks who don't know what that means,
Yeah.
um, we would have our listeners could be other students, could be potential, high school students thinking about college,
Yeah.
could be parents, could be other teachers or professors, and so on. Um, People don't really know what a college of general studies is. In
Yeah.
fact, they don't know what general studies is,
Yeah.
why that. And if you want to be a business major, shouldn't you be taking business classes, from the get go? Why
Hmm.
it took you 2 years to get there, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Like, tell us a little bit about, it's pretty unique, by the way, to
Yeah.
BU as well, the way it's worked. But tell us a little bit about that from your perspective as a student.
Of course. So I found out about the College of General Studies as I was applying. It's a question that's asked as you apply, do you want to be considered for the College of General Studies? And so I did my personal research to figure out what that was. And it really is like a liberal studies program. It's very interdisciplinary. There's so many different courses that you take for 2 years before you go into what your intended major is for college. So basically, everyone who's in the College of General Studies doesn't actually graduate from the College of General Studies after 4 years. It's a 2 year program that kind of helps you figure out what your interests are and just be able to learn about different things alongside learning about what your major is. So I was still taking classes like econ and accounting and finance, but I had a good balance of, having art history classes, rhetoric, humanities, things like that. Just to be able to learn more about the world and just be more diverse as well. And then, of course, the best part of the College of General Studies program that prompts most people to apply is that we get to study abroad, um, which is nice, and it's paid for too. um, I think other
Yeah.
study abroad programs you do have to pay, but for the College of General Studies, it's paid for. It's really integrated into the program, and a lot of the learning we do while we are in London is very specific to London. For other study abroad programs that BU offers, you're going to be taking classes that are for your intended major and not necessarily centered around the location that you're in. So that was something that was really unique about it too. But it's nice. It's also nice to have a tight knit community. Almost everyone in the College of General Studies knows each other, and it's nice to have that community in a school that's so large as BU. So yeah, that's what it is.
I I've always loved um, the structure of the what's called CGS at
Yeah.
BU, and I've always learned about it from Professor Regan or Natalie and the professors and the administrators of the school,
Hmm.
whom of course they love it
Yeah.
and because they designed it. But it's nice to be able to hear from the student's standpoint too, in the receiving end of all of this.
Yeah.
Um, I want to maybe for a moment talk a little bit about something that is in the mind of a lot of um, folks who might either be considering college or even in college right now, right? And maybe may not be at BU or at at have the opportunity to be part of this very well designed sort of general studies program. But I wanted to talk about sort of in concept because I think it's going to be really useful for someone who has that experience
Hmm.
to be able to talk about it immediately. I've heard a lot of students questioning the value of a liberal arts education. Like you said, it's kind of this liberal artsy thing, right? Why take an art history class? Why take a rhetoric class? Is it just so that you can sound like you went to college, so you can use big words? Or is there something more to it?
I think a liberal arts um, degree, study, class is really more so important for you to, like what we were saying, have different perspectives. I think if you go straight into just learning about business or being pre-med and not having those experiences of learning history, understanding how people work, I just feel like having a liberal arts study mindset really opens up your mind to a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different thinking, and just a new way of looking at things. I think it's also important it helps you to connect with people. You understand how people work. It, yeah, you understand how people work, and I feel like that's what's the most important part of it as well. Is it helps you feel connected. At the end of the day, we are all like very social. We're social human beings. And what's the point of having such a big degree that could be considered more important if you're not able to connect with people and understand the history behind things, why things work the way they work, and being able to have rhetoric, for example, being able to convince people, being able to be a good writer. Those things are so important in any space.
And I agree. I mean, I'm a big fan. I think that it's it's but I mean, I can also see the perspective of why people are questioning it,
Yeah.
right? Because they go, "Hey, if I want to just learn about business, why don't you just give me the business course I need? Let me get out like quickly,
Yeah.
as quick as possible, so I can do the work." And sometimes I kind of feel like when I talk to people who have been through this process of going through a liberal arts program or sort of a general studies program, what certainly one that is well designed like yours is.
Mhm.
um, what I sometimes get the feeling, and some people had told me, so that I'm paraphrasing, is that you certainly could just go in and take those business class or pre-med class or whatever your area of study is, right? Engineering, etc. You can just take those classes. You'll get the technical skills,
Mhm.
to perform those related tasks that's expected of you.
Yeah.
But even in the short time span of that 4 years or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, having that liberal arts sort of foundation actually allows you to go further in each of those
Hmm.
classes. So
For
each of
sure.
these skills that you develop comes with almost like a booster,
Yeah.
because you have that liberal arts sort of, you had opened up your mind to something that you go, oh, hold on a minute. It's almost like one of those, like, once you
Hmm.
make sense of one thing, that one thing can be applicable to a lot of
Yeah.
other things. And these are things that make actually just the very practical part of learning the skills to be,
Hmm.
in marketing and business analytics, to be you be more effective. In other words, if you spend 4 years just learning marketing and business analytics and business administration in general, versus actually spending some of that in in the liberal arts areas, like in rhetoric, like you said, or in writing, etc., it actually makes you stronger,
Yeah.
um, as a
100% agree.
graduate, right?
Yeah, I
So it's
agree.
almost like you get you get your value back
Hmm.
quickly enough. It doesn't take 20 years for it to show up.
Hmm. It's not wasted at all. I
Yeah,
feel like I'm
yeah.
already seeing the impact that it's had on me with now that I'm focusing on purely business classes. For example, the class I took with Professor Regan my first year, even though it's compared to the typical writing 101 class, it's so much more than that. It's more than just writing essays. We're really aiming to be persuasive, and we also do presentations. And Professor Regan was the first person that told me about the power of doing a superhero pose before you do a presentation, and the impact that it has on you. And now this year, my third year, and I have a class where I have to give a presentation, my professor mentioned the same thing. But people are learning that in their third year, whereas I already knew these tips and tricks from my freshman year, because I had a class that wasn't just only a writing class. It was a writing class with presentation skills embedded, research skills. Like, you learn so much more. And I've had so many classes like that. There's a social science class requirement where we had to learn about mercantilism and trade wars, and that shows up in econ and any other finance class, for example. It's so applicable to so many areas that you truly see the value just even 2 years after doing the program. So yeah.
Mhm. And I think that there is also something really interesting, especially in today's world, where we get a huge amount of resources that is thrown at us through our phones or
Yeah.
social media apps and so on, that um, the ability to interact with the world and with people, like you said, is actually tremendously important,
Hmm.
because we now have to filter everything, even when it's something that was published by a, let's say, known source.
Yeah.
We still need to go in and look at it
Yeah.
critically, and being able to understand and decipher what it is that they're trying to say,
Mhm.
right? And so for me, there is a big part of just, in some sense, because of that advance in communication, right, in our world, like the digital communication using social media apps and video, short videos, TikToks, etc.,
Yeah.
that we actually need to be even more critical, have more skills to deal with all of that, just to be a productive everyday person. And it didn't matter whether you were becoming a doctor
Hmm.
or going into business or becoming an engineer or a nurse, right? It's almost like you need that
Yeah.
today. It's become a critical skill.
It's so important, and it's not as easy to learn it if you go straight into those fields. You don't get those soft skills, those social skills as much if you go into those fields straight on.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the so I had said before that we promised that we're going to talk a little bit about London, because that's such a it's such an amazing
Yeah.
um, program that, such an amazing part of the program that you get to go to London, and it's during the summer. Am I right?
Yeah, it's the summer
And
semester.
it's for how many weeks that you are there?
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
So I know a little bit about this program, and I'm going to just um, contextualize this for folks. At BU, they have this really innovative hub um, concept where there are, these different units that students will take, and one of these units. Uh, and is it happens in London? Am I right?
Mhm.
And they all address sort of different things, and but a a really amazing part of this, and perhaps that's because I love London. I used to live in the UK, like I said, but I also love food, and I know this is like one of those like famous assignments that students get from Professor Regan, and that is called Food in London, um, and it's probably one of those assignments that everyone in the world is just jealous. Wait, hold on a minute. You got to go to London, eat, and get credit for it. Come on. So tell us a little bit about this, and we want to hear a little bit more about like this whole concept of going there, what it was like,
Yeah.
and what was asked of you. Why is it so good? Why is I mean, aside from the obvious, like you got to go eat,
Hmm.
like what is so effective about this kind of assignment? It seems a lot like how in the world is that going to translate to a business degree, right?
Well, it really does translate because, first of all, you learn how to be a social person. I think the business world, you need to be sociable, you need to be able to speak to people, you need to be persuasive. And that's really what the assignment targets. You get to pick any restaurant of your choice. It really requires you to dig deep, figure out what is important to you, what food you want to try, and you basically just get to be a food critic. And we had spent like classes beforehand reading food critic websites and seeing how they speak to these things, and we were really able to tailor it in that way. We also did some research to find statistics about, food, find some famous food bloggers. So it required a lot. It required research, but it also required us to step out of our comfort zone and really explore London. Professor Regan really emphasized that he wanted us to leave the little bubble that we were in. We stayed in South Kensington, and he was like, I would really love if you guys would go far out and really try to explore. I mean, it pushes you to try new things, step out of your comfort zone, and then you get to critique it. You get to give your opinion, and it shapes how you give your opinion as well. So, I mean, the assignment was great. Almost all the assignments that we did in London were great as well. If you want me to speak about those too.
Oh, I should certainly would. But I wanted to learn a little bit more about. So, what did you do? What did you choose? Where did you go?
So,
And what was the food like? Tell us.
of course, so like I said earlier, I grew up in Nigeria, and I've been to London quite a few times. I've also been to America a few times growing up as well. But staying in Boston, I had never really found like a Nigerian restaurant that was able to replicate home cooking or even elevate it. So I knew that I wanted to find a restaurant in London that represented Nigerian culture and Nigerian food. And I know that the Nigerian community is huge there. So I had a lot of options to choose from, and that's also part of the project, is doing your research, figuring out what has high ratings. And so I found this restaurant called the Flygerians, like Fly Nigerians. And I looked them up, and they had, I think, like 4.5 stars out of 5. And it just seemed amazing. The food seemed great. I looked them up on TikTok, great reviews on there as well. Everyone loved the food. So I knew I had to try it. And so I called one of my friends that lived in London too. He hadn't tried it yet. And so we both went over, tried the food. It was honestly pretty far out from where I was staying. I believe it was in Peckham, and the food was amazing. It elevated Nigerian food so much, but in a way that it was still comforting. It didn't take away from what the real food is. It was great. The food tasted great. The ambiance was amazing, and that was part of what we had to do for the project as well. Was describe like he said, we need to use the five senses. He said, describe what you're seeing, describe what you're hearing, how it tastes. Like, the music that was playing was amazing, the ambience was amazing. It was such a like cozy restaurant. I had couches, colorful couches. It really just felt like home, and I think that was what I was looking for when I was looking for a restaurant. Was I wanted somewhere that felt like home and really brought those comforting tastes and like made me feel like I was back home in Nigeria, and that's exactly how I felt, with still having that vibe of I'm in a restaurant and I'm still eating. And it was a great experience, and I love that me getting to go out and eat was my homework and I got to just write about it. So,
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love that. And like I said, I grew up in Hong Kong,
mhm,
and every once in a while I'll find places in my travels, that would sell or have like they would serve like certain like Cantonese cuisines or street food
mhm.
that you're like, oh yes, that reminds it brings you all the way back to your
Yeah,
childhood or to certain parts, of your life that you might have forgotten or had left behind.
exactly.
um and I think that there is something about that, and I don't know whether I'm overreaching a little bit, but there's something about it that helps, using the senses to help create that sense of belonging, a sense of groundedness, a
Mhm.
sense of, identity and culture. And to be honest, I think those are some of those things that sometimes we talk about in the abstract.
Yeah.
Belonging, for example, you know, it's one of those things that you go, well, when you know it, when you feel it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to describe those things sometimes. And this is the type of things that almost force you, that it's almost like visually, but also, like you said, by the smell, by the sounds, right?
Yeah.
And certainly there's a lot more nuance, and I'm sure the language that was spoken, the way that they treated you,
Mhm.
and so on, all sort of brings all of that back, right?
Mhm.
So to me, it's one of those things that I'm sure, like, and I felt this way when I remember when I used to visit, once I moved and I visit home,
Yeah.
and quickly you kind of forgot, oh, yeah, that's just what life is like. But actually, when you put it, like, transplant it into a whole different area when you don't expect it, you start to see all of the little
Yeah, and
nuance,
you
and,
really start to
right?
value it too. Like the
Yeah,
very little things, like there was like African print, Nigerian print on some of the couches, and it was like that was something that I never valued. I would see these type of print and styles all over back
mm,
home, and then seeing it on a couch, I'm like, wow, like that was something I never appreciated. Or they had some pictures of famous artists that came from Nigeria as well, and I was like, these are things I don't think about these things on a day to day, but
right.
seeing it was like, wow.
I think that's beautiful. Here's a preview of what's coming up next in part two of my conversation with Dami Akingbade, a junior at Boston University's Questrom School of Business.
How you manage yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life, you will be more satisfied with life, and you will be more able to self accept and have a better psychological well being when you understand who you are as a person, understand what your weaknesses are, and you're able to work towards those as well.